Imagine stepping outside right now with nothing on. No jacket. No shoes. No shirt. Nothing. Now imagine it's January. The wind is cutting through you like a blade. The ground is frozen so hard it hurts to stand on. Your feet are burning, but not from heat. From cold so deep it feels like the bones inside them are cracking. You last maybe 10 minutes before your body starts shutting down. Fingers go first. Then your ears. Then your thinking gets foggy, and you stop shivering, which sounds like relief, but it's not. It means your body just gave up trying to save you. Now imagine there's no building to walk back into. No car to sit in with the heater running. No door to close behind you. That's your life. That's winter. And for hundreds of thousands of years, that's exactly what early humans faced. No fabric. No stitching. No zippers or buttons or thermal layers. Just skin. So how did they not die? Let's start with something most people don't think about. You don't actually need clothes to survive cold. What you need is to stop losing heat. That's the entire game. Your body is already a furnace. Right now, your core is burning at about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. You produce heat constantly. Every time your muscles twitch, every time your organs work, you're generating warmth. The problem isn't making heat. The problem is keeping it. And your body, on its own, is terrible at that. You have almost no fur. You have thin skin. And most of your heat escapes from your head, your hands, your feet, and your chest. Basically all the parts that are hardest to cover. So if you're an early human standing on a frozen plain 400,000 years ago, you've got a body that runs hot but leaks heat like a broken window. And you have exactly zero technology to fix that. Or do you? The first thing ancient humans used wasn't clothing. It was fire. Fire changed everything. Before fire, winter nights were a death sentence you had to outrun every single evening. You had to find shelter, curl up with others, and hope your body heat held long enough to reach sunrise. But once fire was controlled, somewhere around 400,000 years ago, everything shifted. A campfire burns at around 900 degrees Fahrenheit at its core. The radiant heat reaching your skin from a few feet away can raise your skin temperature significantly, even in freezing conditions. So now you've got a portable sun. One that works at night. One you can build inside a cave next to a rock wall that reflects heat back at you. Suddenly, winter nights go from deadly to survivable. But fire has limits. You can't carry it while you walk. You can't keep it going in heavy rain. And if your fuel runs out in the middle of the night, you're right back where you started. Freezing, in the dark, with nothing between you and the cold. So fire was the first answer. But it wasn't enough on its own. The second answer was shelter. And not the kind you're imagining. Early humans didn't build houses. They found natural formations that blocked the wind and trapped heat. Caves were the obvious choice. A deep cave maintains a stable temperature year-round. Even when it's below freezing outside, the inside can sit at 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not warm by your standards. But when the outside is 10 degrees and the wind is howling, 50 degrees feels like a miracle. And when you combine a cave with a fire near the entrance, you create what's basically a natural oven. The fire heats the air. The rock walls absorb and radiate that heat. The ceiling traps it. You've got insulation without ever inventing insulation. But not everyone had caves. Some groups lived on open plains where there wasn't a rock formation for miles. So what did they do? They dug. And they piled. Archaeologists have found circular arrangements of mammoth bones in Europe and Central Asia that were almost certainly used as frames for shelters. They drape animal hides over the bones and pack the gaps with mud and vegetation. It wasn't pretty. But it stopped the wind. And stopping the wind, in winter, is half the battle. Now let's talk about the thing you've been waiting for. Animal skins. At some point, ancient humans figured out that the dead animal they just ate had something more valuable than meat. Its skin. A fresh animal hide, even untreated, provides immediate insulation. Wrapping a deer skin around your torso traps a layer of warm air between your body and the cold. That's the same principle behind every jacket you've ever worn. But a raw hide is disgusting to wear. It's wet. It's stiff. It rots within days. It smells so bad it would attract predators. And once it dries, it cracks and becomes useless. So wearing animal skin required processing. The simplest method was scraping. You take the hide, stretch it out, and use a sharp stone to scrape away the fat on the inside. Then you work it with your hands, pulling and stretching to keep the fibers flexible. Some groups discovered that rubbing animal brains into the hide made it softer and more water resistant. That's not a joke. The brain of almost any animal contains enough oils to tan its own hide. It sounds made up until you realize indigenous peoples have used this method for thousands of years. Once treated, a hide could last weeks. It could be wrapped, tied with strips of sinew, and layered for extra warmth. It wasn't a coat. But it was the beginning of one. Now here's something most people overlook. Body fat. Before clothing, before fire, the single most important factor in surviving cold was how much fat you were carrying. Fat sits right beneath your skin and slows down heat loss the same way a wetsuit works. The thicker the layer, the longer you retain core temperature. Ancient humans in colder climates were significantly stockier than those near the equator. Neanderthals had wide, barrel-shaped chests, thick limbs, and compact bodies. That shape isn't random. It's thermal engineering done by evolution. A round body has less surface area relative to its volume than a tall, thin body. Less surface area means less heat escaping. So if you're short, wide, and carrying a thick layer of fat, you're basically wearing a biological winter coat. Which brings us to the real turning point. The needle. Roughly 40,000 years ago, someone figured out how to make a bone needle. A thin, sharpened piece of bone with a small hole drilled through one end. That sounds like a boring invention. But it might be one of the most important things a human being has ever created. Because before the needle, hides could only be wrapped or tied. You couldn't fit them to your body. You couldn't seal the gaps where cold air gets in, like your wrists, your neck, your ankles. But with a needle and animal sinuous thread, suddenly you could stitch pieces of hide together. You could make something that actually fits. Something with sleeves. Something that closes around your neck. Something that covers your feet completely. That's not just clothing. That's engineered protection. And the groups that had this technology could go places that were previously impossible. Higher latitudes. Deeper into frozen territory. Across land bridges that connected continents during the Ice Age. The needle didn't just keep people warm. It opened up the entire planet. There's one more thing that kept ancient humans alive in the cold that nobody talks about. Each other. Sleeping in groups generates shared body heat. 3 or 4 people huddled together under a single animal hide, near a fire, inside a cave, lose far less heat than one person alone. The people on the outside rotate inward. The fire gets fed in shifts. Someone is always half awake, watching for predators, keeping the flame alive. You didn't survive winter alone. You survived because your group made it through the night together. Every single night. 4 months. So how did ancient humans survive winter without clothes? They didn't do it with one thing. They did it with everything. Fire to create warmth. Caves to trap it. Body fat to slow the loss. Hides to block the wind. Eventually, stitched clothing to seal the gaps. And each other, always each other, to share the load when the cold was too much for one body to handle. None of it was comfortable. None of it was easy. Every winter was a test, and not everyone passed. But enough did. Generation after generation, enough humans made it through the cold to keep going. And that's why you're sitting where you are right now. Warm. Clothed. Alive. Because thousands of years ago, someone with nothing but skin and fire and stubborn will refuse to freeze.